Welcome to another set review. This is the Strixhaven set review. As a quick reminder, this is a draft-only set review. I guess these days and ages, I need to say this is a best of 3 set review. I don't care about best of 1. We no longer do letter grades here. We are taking a look at where we would be happy picking these cards, because the difference between an A and an A- and an A+ and even a B+ doesn't matter. Where are you happy picking these cards is where we'll really be talking. We're going to start out going through all the multicolored cards in this video, and then we'll go through the monocoloreds, the artifacts, the lands, and the Mystic Archives. Although the Mystic Archives are basically good trash. That's it. Anyways, let's get started with Augmenter Pugilist. Augmenter Pugilist is 1 green for a creature troll druid. If you saw what happened there. At rare, it's a 3/3 with trample. As long as you control 8 or more lands, Augmenter Pugilist gets +5/+5. There's a backside to this card, but the front side of this card I'm very happy with. It's a 3 mana 3/3. That's fine with trample. It's even a little bit fine plus. And if you have 8 or more lands, which we have the emote for a reason, I'll have 8 or more lands, you bet. This is an 8/8 trample, which is nuts. I'm happy to first pick this, regardless of what the backside is. The backside is Echoing Equation, 3 blue for a sorcery. Choose target creature you control. Each other creature you control becomes a copy of it until end of turn, except those creatures aren't legendary if the chosen creature is legendary. I'm not really a big fan of this. Like, sure, if it comes up, if for some reason I have not played the troll yet, and it makes sense for me to use this, cool, but I'm not picking this card for this. This is a card that requires such a very specific situation to be going on. You know, you have gone a little bit wide. You do have a really good creature. For some reason, your really good creature isn't helping you break through. Sure, but this is super duper situational. But I'm first picking the card because I have Augmenter Pugilist. It's not pushing me into green-blue. I'm going to be green when I pick this card. If I happen to be green-blue, I'll keep in mind that I can cast this card. For picks, does best of 1 or best of 3 matter? Yeah, best of 1 is a absolutely flat-out different format. Up next, we have Blex Vexing Pest. Blex Vexing Pest is 2 and a green for a legendary creature pest at Mythic. It's a 3/2. Other pests, bats, insects, snakes, and spiders you control get +1/+1. I didn't do a check on how many spiders, snakes, and insects and bats there are. I know there's at least 1 bat. I'm assuming there's at least an insect and a spider, perhaps. And there's obviously going to be a lot of pests because green-black is making a lot of them. When it dies, you gain 4 life. 3 mana 3/2 that perhaps anthems my team seems fine. This card by itself is kind of like a second, third-ish pick. You start building around it a little bit when you take it. You get rewarded if you get this later in Pack 2 or Pack 3. The backside, Search for Blex, is 2 black for a sorcery at Mythic. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may put any number of them into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. You do lose 3 life for each card you put into your hand this way, though. That's a steep cost. That's a very steep cost. 4 mana, draw 2 cards of a choice of 5, lose 6? That's pretty costly, but, you know, if you've gained some life, black-green is the life gain deck, maybe this works out. I think this is significantly more of a commander card than it is going to be a limited card where, you know, you have 40 life to work with. But if you've gained some life, you know, getting the best single card of your top 5 for only 3 life is going to be probably basically free. Getting the best 2 for 6 life probably isn't basically free, but could be close. Again, I think I'm picking this for the first side. I might slightly hedge towards black with this one, but really I'm picking this for the first side at like second, third pick. Up next is Extus, Auric Overlord, basically Voldemort. 1 white, this is not Harry Potter, the set apparently. 1 white, black for a legendary creature, human warlock at Mythic. It's a 2/4 with double strike. It's got Magecraft. Magecraft is whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, and we'll never say that again, return target non-legendary creature card from your graveyard to your hand. It's great. 4 mana, virtual 4/4. If you grow it somehow, black-white is the counters deck. It's going to be even bigger. It's going to attack even better. And every time you cast a spell, you get to Grave Dig. Awesome. Front half of this card's an easy first pick. Back half, Awaken the Blood Avatar, is 6 black-red, notably not a supported color pair in this set. For a sorcery at Mythic, as an additional cost to cast this spell, you may sacrifice any number of creatures. This spell costs 2 less to cast for each creature sacrificed this way. Each opponent sacks a creature, create a 3/6 black and red avatar token with haste, and whenever this creature attacks, it deals 3 damage to each opponent. So basically a 6/6 for potentially 2 if you sack a bunch of creatures. Again, I think I'm first picking this because of the front half. I'll probably splash a little bit of red just to see if we can get the second half going. But I think I'd prefer to just always cast the front half here. The other half is a little bit bigger. It does somewhat more damage. It does 6 when it attacks. So there's going to be options where it's nice to have. But again, I think I'm first picking the front half, and it's not going to be a huge stretch to put just a tiny bit of red splash into my black-white deck. So this seems like a snap first pick. Is that still? Yes. Okay. Next up is Flame Scroll Celebrant. Flame Scroll Celebrant is 1 and a red for a creature human shaman at rare. It's a 2/1. Whenever an opponent activates an ability that isn't a mana ability, Flame Scroll Celebrant deals 1 damage to that player. Pay 1 and a red, Flame Scroll Celebrant gets +2/+0 until end of turn. That first ability is very constructed focused. Limited just doesn't typically have as many activated abilities. This set does seem to have a number of mana sinks though, so it's not going to be nothing, but it's also not something that you should really care about. We've seen this effect a million times before. So this is a 2/1 for 2 with double flame breathing, which is okay. Back half of the card is Revel in Silence, white for an instant. Your opponent can't cast spells or activate Planeswalker's loyalty abilities this turn. Exile Revel in Silence. This card's garbage. We've seen variations of Silence over and over. They are never good in Limited. You should never be picking the card to do this. You should probably never be casting this. Yes, somebody will find an opportunity at some point where it wins them the game. But generally, you should be casting the front half of this card, and it's fine, but it is nowhere near a high pick. I'm picking this up like 4th, 5th. I think I might actually want to push this 6th through 8th. That first ability just does not do what you think it does. Fire breathing is cute, but remember, you need basically a completely clear board on your opponent's side for this to be like surviving it all. It's basically a piker with fire breathing. So let's go 6th through 8th pick here. Don't get too, rarity blinded by it being a rare. Up next is Jadzi, Oracle of Arcavios. Jadzi is 6 blue for a legendary creature human wizard at Mythic. It's a 5/5. Discard a card, return it to its owner's hand. Magecraft, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a non-land card, you can cast it by paying 1 rather than paying its mana cost. If it's a land card, put it onto the battlefield. Everything's amazing about this card except for the fact that it's 8 mana. 8 mana is a tall ask, but if you get to 8 mana and you still have a deck and you have spells, you're going to get to go through your spells in your deck even more, right? So the front half of this card seems good if you can get to 8 mana. Now, yes, I do know that the green-blue school, guild, whatever, their whole thing is getting to 8 mana. You still have to get to 8 mana. I don't care if their thing is getting to 8 mana, you still have to get to 8 mana. Journey to the Oracle is the backside. 2 green for a sorcery. You may put any number of land cards from your hand onto the battlefield. Then if you control 8 or more lands, you may discard a card. If you do, return Journey to the Oracle to its owner's hand. Fast Bond is terrible. Fast Bond is terrible. If your hand is nothing but lands and you get there with this card, you got there by having an incredibly crappy hand. This is why Fast Bond is a bad card in Limited. I'm not really into Journey to the Oracle. Not at all. Not even slightly. I would expect to never cast Journey to the Oracle. Now, if I can consistently get up to 8 mana, which theoretically there should be a way to do, since that is the green-blue thing. WotC doesn't typically make archetypes that don't work. They do. They absolutely do. They just don't do it often, and I assume they don't do it on purpose. So assuming we can get to 8, Jadzi looks great. Jadzi looks amazing. I'll first pick Jadzi, and I'll do everything I can to ramp up to 8. I'm hesitant to believe that just casually getting to 8 lands is a thing that even the 8 lands deck can do, but we'll see. Up next is Kian, Dean of Substance. Kian is 2 and a green for a legendary creature elf druid. At rare, it's a 2/2. Tap, exile the top card of your library. If it's a land card, put it into your hand. Otherwise, put a steady counter on it, and it stays in exile. 4 and a green, create a 0/0 green and blue fractal creature token. Put a +1/+1 counter on it for each different mana value among non-land cards you own in exile with steady counters on them. So a 3-mana 2/2 that maybe draws me a land or otherwise essentially does nothing. It'll feel bad when you exile, something you really wanted with that steady counter, but it's a random card, so it's essentially nothing. 4 and a green to make a 1/1, a 2/2, a 3/3. Getting above a 3/3, I think, is starting to be a little bit of a pipe dream, but maybe you could make a 4/4 with it for 5 mana. Doing that repeatedly is not bad. This is a mana sink. This card's still fine. I'm just not over the moon about this card. I'm not first picking the front half of this card. I don't think I'm second, third picking. I think I'm like fourth, fifth picking the front half of this card. It's a lot of work to get this going. The back half of the card, though, Imbraham, Dean of Theory, is 2 blue for a legendary creature bird wizard. It's a 3/3 flyer. Pay X blue, tap, exile the top X cards of your library. You may put a study counter on each of them. Then you may put a card you own in exile with a study counter on it into your hand. This side I like a lot. It's a 4-mana 3/3 flyer. I don't care about what the rest of this card says. I'm attacking with this. Ideally 7 times and killing them. If they present a situation in which I can't attack with it, there's a reacher, or they have a bigger flyer, or whatever, I start paying blue 1, blue 2, and I start building a second hand. And then I can pay, I could continue paying blue 1, blue 2, blue 3. I could play blue and just not exile anything and grab a card from my second hand of cards. I think this card's great. I'm first picking this card because of the back half here. I think I'm generally playing the back half. If it turns out that this is the smarter one to play in any given situation, cool. It's great to have that flexibility. But I really like the backside of this one more. So I'm first picking Imbraham here. Up next is Mila, Crafty Companion. Mila, Crafty Companion is 1 white for a legendary creature fox at Mythic. It's a 2/3. Whenever an opponent attacks one or more planeswalkers you control, put a loyalty counter on each planeswalker you control. That's flavor text. Whenever a permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, you may draw a card. 2/3 for 3 that draws me a card if they kill it. Unlike the Battle Mammoth from Kaldheim, my opponent probably doesn't really want to use removal on this, so that's cool. That's cool. This is a fine card. I'm not first picking it. I'm like fourth, fifth picking the front half of this card. The backside's a Planeswalker, though, so, Planeswalker? Hello? Uh-oh. I downloaded the wrong card. Let me grab the correct one. Strixhaven card image gallery. Modal double-faced cards. Mila. Flip, save, 153A, yes, overwrite. The back half is a Planeswalker. Luca, Wayward Bonder, 4 red for a legendary Planeswalker. Luca starts with 5 loyalty plus 1. You can discard a card if you do draw a card. If a creature card was discarded this way, draw 2 cards instead. Cool. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste, exiled at the beginning of your next upkeep. Next upkeep. That's kind of cool. You could bring in a blocker, which you wouldn't want to, but cool. -7, you get an emblem with whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. Virtual double strike, if you want. It's a Planeswalker. It's great. You're first picking this Planeswalker. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. If early game, if you're mana screwed, if you don't have your red, whatever, you play Mila and you're totally fine with it. And then if you can get to the late game, you play Luca and you're probably pretty fine with it. Easy first pick. Up next is Pestilent Cauldron. Pestilent Cauldron is 2 and a black for an artifact. Tap, discard a card, create a 1/1 black and green pest creature token with when this creature dies, you gain 1 life. All pests have that, so we won't be saying that again. Pay 1 tap, each opponent mills cards equal to the amount of life you gained this turn. Pay 4 tap, exile 4 target cards from a single graveyard, draw a card. So discard a card, make a pest at instant speed. That's fine. I'm not stoked by it. It's not amazing. It's a nice ability to have access to. Pay 1 tap, my opponent mills. No. No interest. Pay 4 tap, exile 4 target cards from a single graveyard, draw a card. Cool. You're not doing that often. You'll do that 3 times a game? Max? Maybe 4? You know, sure, I guess. Front side of this card is not great. Not great. I'm not really interested in it. Discarding a card is a high cost. The backside, 3 green for a sorcery for Restorative Burst. Return up to 2 target creature, land, and/or planeswalker cards from your graveyard to your hand. Each player gains 4 life. Exile Restorative Burst. So I get to regrow 2 things. Can't quite be permanent, but there's no artifacts or enchantments that we're really going to be caring. We're going to be caring about bringing back creatures, basically. I have to give my opponent 4 life. Whatever. That's fine. The backside of this card is okay. It's sorcery speed, not instant speed. Typically, that's the dividing line for me. If it's an instant speed effect, I like it quite a bit more. If it's a sorcery speed effect, I deeply dislike it. So overall, I'm just not happy with this card. I'll probably never play it because I'm not first picking it. I'm not second, third picking it. I don't think I'm 4th, 5th picking it. I think I'm 6th, 8th picking this, which means I'm never playing it. So, goodbye, Pestilent Cauldron. Never see you again. Up next is Plarg, Dean of Chaos. Plarg is 1 and a red for a legendary creature, Orc Shaman. At rare, it's a 2/2. Tap, Rummage. Discard a card, draw a card. Cool. Pay 4 and a red, tap, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a non-legendary, non-land card with converted mana cost 3 or less. You may cast this card without paying its mana cost. Put all revealed cards not cast this way on the bottom of your library in a random order. Sure. It's a bear that rummages. On demand. Sold. And then if I have mana kicking around, I could spin the wheel to see what I get. Cool. This card's very solid. I don't think it's quite bomb territory. These days and ages, I expect there's probably uncommons I would take over this. But I think this is a strong second, third, just on the front side. The back side, we're looking at Augusta, Dean of Order. 2 and a white for a legendary creature, Human Cleric. She's a 1/3. Other tapped creatures you control get +1/+0. Other untapped creatures you control get +0/+1. Whenever you attack, untap every creature you control. Then tap any number of creatures you control. There's too many permutations here. So, Real Gavis, thank you very much for the 14-month resub. So you attack with this, everything has untapped and has a bigger butt. You go to blocks, and then you, sorry. You can't go to blocks. You have to then immediately decide what you want to tap. This is a lot of weird complexity. Obviously, if you're getting through kind of unimpeded, you just tap everything again that, is attacking. I miss simplicity in Magic. I really miss simplicity in Magic. But this opens up a lot of decisions that you have to make. So yeah, you basically figure out what you want to have tapped with a +1 power and what you want to have untapped in case of potential blocks and such. Ultimately, I think this is going to end up being very simplistic in the majority of situations. I think the majority of situations are going to be, I have attacked with a bunch of things because they don't have blockers. I'm going to tap them and give them all a power boost. If my opponent can attack me back, how am I attacking them in the first place? Right? So I think this is interesting. I think this opens up a lot of decisions. I think ultimately, though, most situations are going to be extraordinarily straightforward. But still, a very good card. I'm happy with both sides of this card. And I think ultimately I end up first picking this card, even though I said second to third. It's not exactly a bomb, but I think I'm pretty happy first picking. Up next is Rowan, Scholar of Sparks. Rowan, Scholar of Sparks is 2 and a red for a legendary planeswalker, Rowan at Mythic. She starts with 2 loyalty. Instant sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. +1, Rowan, Scholar of Sparks deals 1 damage to each opponent. If you've drawn 3 or more cards this turn, she deals 3 damage to each opponent instead. -4, you gain an emblem with whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you may pay 2. If you do, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for that copy. So 3 mana planeswalker, 2 loyalty, all my instant sorceries are lower, cool. +1 to ping an opponent, cool. Probably not doing 3 damage to my opponent that much, but if I do, cool, I must be massively ahead. If we can get the emblem, cool. Not sure if it's super important, but cool. However, we also have the backside Will, Scholar of Frost. Will is 4 and a blue for a legendary planeswalker. Will starts with 4 loyalty, same static ability. +1 up to 1 target creature has base power toughness 0-2 until your next turn. -3, draw 2 cards. -7, exile up to 5 target permanents. For each permanent exile this way, its controller creates a 4/4 blue and red elemental creature token. So you're probably doing that to yourself, getting towards the end of the game. Blow up 5 lands, get 20 power, 20 toughness. Sounds good to me. This card's an obvious first pick, as almost all planeswalkers always are. I think I'm strongly preferring to play Will, but I'll play Rowan if early in the game it makes sense. I maybe look like I'm not necessarily getting to 5 mana quick enough, etc. But again, flexibility on the card is amazing. This is my preferred side of the card, though. Easy first pick. Up next is Selfless Glyph Weaver. Selfless Glyph Weaver is 2 and a white for a creature human cleric at rare. It's a 2/3. Exile Selfless Glyph Weaver. Creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. That's a cool enough effect. We've seen that before on some sort of flying spirit, I think. What this does is it buys you time if you need to. It presents perhaps a really nice attack where nothing can happen to your board. In a pinch, you can just save your bomb or something if they're targeting it with removal. The front half of this card is fine. It's not amazing. People will overvalue this effect. People always overvalue effects like this because it's one of those effects that absolutely does utterly turn a game around, but it utterly turns one game around every 20 games, right? This is Teo, isn't it? The front half of this card is kind of whatever. It's like a 4th, 5th, maybe 6th, 8th pick even. 2/3 for 3 just isn't that exciting. The back half, Deadly Vanity, 5 black, black, black for a sorcery. Choose a creature or planeswalker, then destroy all other creatures and planeswalkers. This is basically Dune Blast, which was amazing from Cons. 5 black, black, black is not an easy ask. 8 mana, and we are not in the 8 land school. You must know how you're going to get to 8 mana with this. If you get to 8 mana with this, it's gonna be very hard for you to not win that game. You keep your best creature, they lose all of their creatures. This is tough for me. I think this will be speed dependent. If the format does support just casually getting up to 8 mana, even outside of blue-green, this is probably a snap first pick. Absolutely snap first pick. If you're in black-white, cool, you at least have this side of the card that you can play, right? It's turn 17, we're never getting to 8 mana. I can play this. But that means this is never a black card, right? This means that this is never a card that goes in your black. I can never remember which schools are even in this set. Your black-green deck, right? This is always going in your black-white deck. So I don't know where I pick this. I think I start first picking it, seeing if I can get to 8 mana, seeing if I can do that board wipe. I think I would strongly prefer to be playing black-white with this so that I at least have this valve of getting this card out. But we'll see how it plays out. I think this will be format dependent. Up next is Shaylee, Dean of Radiance. Shale. Shale is 1 and a white for a legendary creature, Bird Cleric at rare. It's a 1/1 flying vigilance. Tap, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature that entered the battlefield under your control this turn. This is a cool card. It's a 1/1 flying vigilance for 2. I don't like 1/1s for 1. I certainly don't like 1/1s for 2, but it's got vigilance, which means as long as there's nothing blocking, you can attack in, play whatever your creatures are that turn, and then just, boom, put a bunch of counters on all of them. Or 1 counter, put a bunch of counters if you played a bunch of creatures. This card's cool. This card's really cool. I like this half very, very nice. As long as you're playing creatures, you might be playing more instant sorceries in this format than you generally would. However, I know this is the instant sorcery format. There's literally exactly the same number of creatures in this format below rare, I think is what I checked, as Kaldheim. Literally 86. Let's double check that just so that I'm giving you absolute true facts here. Set Strixhaven in booster type creature. 129 creatures of all rarities. Kaldheim. 129 creatures of all rarities. Literally the same number of creatures in Kaldheim as there are in Strixhaven. Keep that in mind. But yeah, you need to be playing creatures, obviously, or at least playing spells that make creatures, and I think this card's great. I'm first picking this card. Up next, Kaldheim did have a lower creature count than normal, but you didn't play, 15 instant and sorcery Kaldheim decks, right? So I would be hesitant about thinking that Strixhaven decks are just going to be like jammed full of instants and sorceries. That's not how limited works. The other half of this card is Embrose Dean of Shadow. Embrose Dean of Shadow is 2 black for a legendary creature, human warlock at rare. It's a 4/4. Tap, put a +1/+1 counter on another target creature, then Embrose Dean of Shadow deals 2 damage to that creature. Whenever Dean Ambrose, that's pretty good. Whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it dies, draw a card. This side's great. It's a 4-mana 4/4. Cool. It's putting counters on all of my creatures that are not 1/1s. It's killing their 1/1s. It's killing their other things after combat damage where they, have like 1 damage left to kill them off. This side of the card is amazing. This one, we don't have to talk too long on this, and we can't talk too long on this if I'm going to have supper tonight in 6 hours from now. You're first picking this card, and you're playing whichever side of the card you can first, right? If it's turn 2, you probably just jam down Shale. If it's turn 4 and you've got the mana, you just jam down Embrose. Both sides of this card is nuts. Easy first pick. Up next is Torrent Sculpture. Torrent Sculpture is 2 blue for a creature merfolk wizard at rare. It's a 2/2 with Ward 2. This is our last new mechanic, I think, and it's not even a new mechanic. Ward says whenever this creature becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, counter it unless that player pays X. In this case, 2. Generally, we've seen this on things like Frost Titan, but now it has a keyword and can a little bit more easily be manipulated to have interesting ward costs. When Torrent Sculpture enters the battlefield, exile an instant or sorcery card from your graveyard, put a number of +1/+1 counters on Torrent Sculpture equal to half that card's mana value rounded up. If this is a 4-mana 2/2, I don't want it. If this is a 4-mana 3/3, I don't want it. If this is a 4-mana 4/4, I'm pretty happy with it. And if it's bigger than that, that's great. 4-mana 4/4 requires us to be exiling a 3-mana spell or a 4-mana spell. It's not a tall ask. That's not a tall ask at all. And maybe we can get that 3rd counter on that. What's the 4th counter going to be? The 4th counter is going to be us getting rid of a 7-drop, so that's not really happening. So at best, this is a 5/5. So I'm not super stoked on the front half of this, but as long as you can get this up to a 4/4, I think, it is going to be pretty good. There are the blue-red discard treasure cards. There's not that many of them. I looked this up, and I can't remember. My mind is wanting me to say there's 2, but they are very expensive spells. But still, as long as you're making this a 4/4, I'm pretty happy with this. 1 common, 1 uncommon, 1 rare. Okay, 3. That sounds right. Can't remember the rare one. Does Magnum Opus exile itself? Maybe it's Magnum Opus. If this flew, I would be so much happier. Also, it looks like it has wings. Come on. Come on. Anyways, not stoked about the front half of this card. The front half of this card's like a 4th, 5th, 6th, 8th. Back half of the card, Flamethrower Sonata, is 1 and a red for a sorcery. Discard card, then draw a card. Rummage. When you discard an instant or sorcery card this way, Flamethrower Sonata deals damage equal to that card's mana value to target creature or planeswalker you don't control. This at least is sort of a cool pressure valve. You know, we're sitting here, we've got this card in our hand. We don't have instants and sorceries, or we have like a 1 mana 1 or a 2 mana 1, and we're for some reason don't want to establish the board even with a crappy undervalued thing. Maybe we can use this as removal. If you've been watching my content lately, you know that in Limited these days, I've sort of started to not care about 1-for-1 removal anymore. It's a weird new world, but it's a weird new world where I've been having a lot of success not caring about 1-for-1 removal. Now, this is not exactly 1-for-1. You do get to rummage. It is conditional, though, because you do have to have something worthwhile that can kill something. So overall, this card is not interesting me that much. I think I'm still going to keep this at like 4th, 5th, 6th, 8th or so, which means I'm probably just never going to see this card for a long time, unfortunately. Up next is Uvilda, Dean of Perfection. Uvilda is 2 and a blue for a legendary creature, Djinn Wizard at rare. It's a 2/2 with tap. You may exile an instant or sorcery card from your hand to put 3 hone counters on it. It gains at the beginning of your upkeep. If this card was exiled, remove a hone counter from it. When the last hone counter is removed from this card, if it's exiled, you may cast it. It costs 4 less to cast this way. So sort of putting like suspend 3 on a spell is a cool little thing. Obviously, you've got the downside of your opponent knowing what's coming several turns early, but you know, you drop this on 3. On 4, you tap it, you throw down the most expensive thing in your hand. Let's say it's an 8 drop, because there are 8 drops running around in this format. Turn 7, you get to cast it for a discount. It's fine. It's not bad. It's fine, not bad. That's about where I am at on the front half of this card. It is fine, not bad. The second half of this card, 3 red for Nassari, Dean of Expression, legendary creature Ifrit Shaman. It's a 4/4. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of each opponent's library. Until end of turn, you may cast spells from among those exiled cards, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast those spells. Whenever you cast a spell from exile, put a +1/+1 counter on Nassari, Dean of Expression. This card doesn't exist because this is the backside, and the backside's great. 5 mana 4/4. We're slightly overpaying for the stats. Whatever. We pull stuff off the top of their deck. It does say cast, which means if we hit a land, we hit nothing. We don't get to play that land even. But we're going to hit things off the top of their deck. We're going to be able to cast those things. This guy, this Ifrit person quickly becomes a 5/5. Maybe gets bigger. We're getting, you know, a secondary hand, essentially. We're getting to cast our opponent's stuff. Love this card. First pick. I'm playing Nassari as much as humanly possible. This is, again, as we've seen with a lot of these MDFCs, this is like the pressure valve. This is the release valve. Oh God, it's turn 7. I'm stuck on like 4 mana. I have 1 mountain. Sorry, Nassari, we're casting Uvilda, right? But I'm first picking this card. It seems great. Our final MDFC, my God, we still have all the multicolors to go through to even end this first video. WotC, please make the D&D set a core set that's relatively simple. I need simple magic for a little bit. Valentine, Dean of the Vein. Valentine is a single black mana for a legendary creature, Vampire Warlock. It's a 1/1 with Menace and Lifelink. If a non-token creature an opponent controls would die, exile it instead. When you do, you may pay 2. If you do, create a 1/1 black and green pest creature token. I don't like 1/1s for 1. Y'all know that. It's very rare that I like a 1/1 for 1. A 1/1 for 1 with Menace and Lifelink, it's still a 1/1. So this just basically sits around. This is like an enchantment that when my creatures die, I can pay 2 to get a pest. That's cool. That's not bad. But I don't think I want to pick the front half of this card. I don't think I like the front half of this card. I'm picking this card late enough that I'm never going to see it because everybody else will pick it. So I think I've got this on 6th through 8th probably. I may even put the front half on the wheel. I don't like the front half of this card for limited. Cheated, thanks for that follow. The back half, though, 2 green for Lizette, Dean of the Root, legendary creature, human druid, 4/4 for 4. Whenever you gain life, you can pay 1. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control, and those creatures gain trample until end of turn. This card's nuts. Black-green does have a pretty heavy life gain component to it. You have to pay 1 mana to put counters on your team, and they get trample. This card is insane. This card is fantastic. It's a snap first pick. Like the last card, ignore that this side exists. I don't even think this is a release valve. I don't care how bad the game looks. As long as I'm playing black-green, this card is rotting in my hand while I wait to cast this side. Obvious hyperbole. I'll play this if I have to. Lizette, easy first pick. Love it. All right. We're on to the multicolored cards. There's a lot of them. I want to say there's 109. I don't want to say there's 119. Please tell me that's a misremembering. Let's do a quick count here. 89. Let's jam through 89 cards and then finish this first section of the set review before we get on to the rest. Up next is Aether Helix. Aether Helix is 3 green for a sorcery at uncommon. Return target permanent to its owner's hand. Return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. Sorcery hurts this. Sorcery definitely hurts this. If this effect was instant, I would love this. End of your opponent's turn, bounce one of their cards, one of their creatures probably, return one of mine to my hand. That's amazing. Sorcery speed means you're probably not casting that permanent that you just returned. Regrow and bounce is still good, but I think sorcery speed hurts this enough that I've got this on 6th through 8th pick. I want to pick this fairly late. In the start of the pack. Not sure if I'll wheel it or not. And we'll have to see how the format shakes out if I'll actually play this or not. Sorcery speed significantly hurts this spell. Up next is Belladross Witherbloom. Belladross is 5 black-green for a legendary creature, Elder Dragon at Mythic. Hey, Toilstorm. It's a 4/4 flyer. At the beginning of each upkeep, create a 1/1 black and green pest token. Pay 10 life, untap all lands you control. Activate only once each turn. Four flyer for 7, and you have to pay 10 life to untap all your lands. It doesn't matter, because this is a frickin' Verdant Force. Verdant Force? Verdant Force, right? Verdant Force. It's a Verdant Force. You're getting a 1/1 every single turn, every upkeep, your upkeep, their upkeep. Those things chump block and die into life. Those things get out of control over 5 or 6 turns and then smash in. This card's nuts. It's an easy snap first pick. Yes, it's overcosted for like its stats because Verdant Force was a 7/7, but this card's nuts. If you've never played with Verdant Force or whatever that one was from Ixalan, it's amazing. Easy first pick. Up next is Biomathematician. 1 green for a creature, human, wizard at common. It's a 2/2. When Biomathematician enters the battlefield, create a 0/0 green and blue fractal creature token. Put a +1/+1 counter on each fractal you control. So fractals are the mascot of Quandrix. This is interesting. People have this as one of the best commons in the entire set. I think people are overestimating just how many fractals you have. Let's do a quick check on this. And I have checked on this, and I can tell you that I think there's like 4 ways of making fractals below rare. There are 5 ways of making fractals below rare. And we'll obviously look at them when we go through green and blue. And they're all fine. They're all fine, but you have to heavily be into fractals for this to work. Yeah, if you get a bunch of these, it works as well. Remember, in an average draft pod, there's only about 2.4 copies of any given common. That actually would be even less because one of the slots, whether it's the lesson slot or the Mystic Archive slot, who knows, takes up a common slot. So I don't know. I'm not on this being one of the best in the format. If you can get heavy into fractals, obviously you need to make that decision for yourself to immediately start valuing these highly. If you've gotten a number of ways of making fractals, if you've got like the rares to make fractals, etc., then yes, you should absolutely much more highly value this card. But going into a draft like pack 1, I'm not sure which I'm taking this. I'm going to start this at like it is still a 3/3 for 3 at the worst case scenario, remember. So I think I am going to do this like 6th through 8th, but I think much more emphasis on the 6th to start. It will encourage me to pick up more fractals. So it's an interesting card. I think this is a synergy card that very heavily depends on what you've drafted so far. But at the start, I'm going to go like 6th-ish pick. Mystic Archive takes the land slot, so the lesson slot takes the common slot. I've spent a long time trying to get clear information on how these packs work, and it is like pulling absolute freaking teeth. There is a lesson in every pack, and that lesson is common, rare, or mythic. I don't know why that phrase doesn't include the word uncommon. Does the rare lesson that show up take the common slot? Because there's only 9 commons in the pack, whereas there should be 10. If you can find clear information on how these packs work, let me know, because it has been a nightmare trying to figure it out. Up next is Blade Historian. Blade Historian is Lorehold. For a creature human cleric at rare, it's a 2/3. Attacking creatures you control have double strike. We've seen this card and I cannot remember what it is. All I can think of is the dinosaur. The dinosaur was bad because it was ludicrously expensive. So this is a 4-mana 2/3 that essentially attacks as if it's a 4-mana 4/3. It makes all of your other aggro-y creatures work out well. This is an interesting card. I don't think it's a first pick. I don't think this is a bomb, because this does not do much on its own. This does not do much if you have it and a 1/1 or a couple of 1/1s. I think this is much closer to a 4th, 5th, maybe 2nd, 3rd. It's definitely not a first pick anyways. It's absolutely not a first pick here. There's significantly better cards than Blade Historian. There will absolutely be better cards. At least it is a passive, that's true. But yeah, there will be better cards than this in the pack, probably. You still pick it very highly. You know, keep in mind, 2nd, 3rd does not mean bad. 6th through 8th doesn't mean bad, remember. But yeah, let's go 2nd, 3rd. Up next is Blood Researcher. Blood Researcher is 1 black-green for a creature vampire druid at common. It's a 2/2 with menace. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on Blood Researcher. It's a Johnny's Pride Mate, except it's got menace, which is kind of scary. The life gain in this set definitely exists. It's definitely in black-green. All those pests are going to blow up into life. Put counters on this. This seems like a totally fine card that you do have to make sure you're building around. If your black-green deck somehow has not really gone off on life, well, this goes down a little bit. It's still a 2/2 menace, which is not the worst thing in the world. It's definitely not a 2nd to 3rd pick. This is way too low impact of a creature to be a 2nd, 3rd pick. This is something you're looking to pick up like I think this is still 6th, 8th. Like, remember, this does nothing on its own, right? 2nd, 3rd pick means that you're taking this over removal, probably. It means you're taking this over like incredible utility cards. I'm not on the 2nd, 3rd pick train here. I'm gonna go 6th, 8th. And obviously, if we can get into life gain, this goes up even higher. But yeah, I'm gonna go 6th, 8th for Blood Researcher. You gotta remember where you pick cards. You gotta remember that. Up next is Blot Out the Sky. Blot Out the Sky is X white black for a sorcery at Mythic. Create X tapped 2/1 white and black. Why are they tapped? White and black inkling creature tokens with flying. If X is 6 or more, destroy all non-creature, non-land permanents. Non-creature. I was like, why would you make a bunch of creatures and then kill them? Yeah, this is an easy first pick. 2/1 flyers are fantastic. Like, if you're making 3 of these, these may as well be Serra Angels, right? This may as well be a Starnheim Unleashed. Yeah, they're not 4/4 Vigilances, but they're still just going to murder the creature. And if you do cast this for 8 mana, getting to... It doesn't matter if you cast this for 8 mana. There's honestly not that many non-creature, non-land permanents that you care about. If you cast it for 8 mana, you got 16 power in the air, and you're very, very happy. This is an easy first pick. I don't think we need to talk about it much more. Up next is Body of Research. Body of Research is green, 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 blue, blue, blue. For a sorcery at Mythic, create a 0/0 green and blue fractal creature token. Put X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the number of cards in your library. 6 mana, 6 very specific mana. Let's say on average we're casting this turn 8-ish. Actually, that wouldn't be average. That'd be like at best case scenario generally. Turn 8, assuming that we've drawn nothing in a set that has a ludicrous amount of card draw in it, we have 25 cards left in our deck. We get a 25-25. A 25-25 that can be Doombladed. This dies to Doomblade. Doomblade's in the set. I don't want this card. I think it's an F. I think it's an absolute F. It's exceptionally hard to cast. It's a creature that has hit the threshold where its power doesn't matter because it doesn't have evasion anyway. It dies to bounce, let alone all the other stuff that it dies to. I think this card's a trap. I think this card's absolutely a trap. I think it's an F. I don't want to play it. I will probably never play this card. I'm not going to put my foot down on that. Maybe someday I'll play it. I'm not going to try to play it. Up next is Closing Statement. Closing Statement is 3 white black for an instant at uncommon. This spell costs 2 less to cast during your end step. During your end step. Interesting. Destroy target creature or planeswalker you don't control. Put a +1/+1 counter on up to 1 target creature you control. As I have said, I am no longer as interested in removal as I once was. Creatures have gotten so bloody good that 1-for-1 removal is something I'm much less interested in. That may have just been a Kaldheim thing. I would love if that was just a Kaldheim thing. But I suspect it may not just be a Kaldheim thing. This is a creature light set, though? Disagree. This has literally the exact same number of creatures to the exact spot as Kaldheim. Literally the same number. Yes, Kaldheim had less creatures than average, but this is literally 129 creatures, the same as Kaldheim. So the upside of this is it is relatively cheap if you're casting it in your end step. 3 mana. It's instant speed. And it's not a 1-for-1 because we can put a counter on one of our creatures. We do get a little bit more value. So I am still going to put this in like the first pick range. I think you're totally fine and happy first picking this. As much as I've been railing against removal the past few weeks, you still have to have it. You just don't have to have as much of it. And you really desperately want it to be efficient, instant speed, and preferably do something a little bit more for you. Make a creature, give a counter, give you a back rub, something like that. This gives a counter. So first pick for Closing Statements. Up next is Cram Session. Cram Session is 1 black-green Witherbloom. For a sorcery at common, you gain 4 life and you learn. I guess we haven't talked about Learn yet. Learn says that you can reveal a lesson card you own from outside the game and put it into your hand, or you can discard a card to draw a card. Learn is an interesting mechanic. I'm not as bullish on it as some people. I don't think it's as free as people are treating Lesson Learn. I think it'll be a very interesting mechanic to wrap my head around and to get into, but I'm not as bullish as others. It's still going to be good. This card is trash. And this is my issue with Learn, is there's a lot of Learn in the set. Sort of. There's about 4-ish cards per color. And I'm finding that like 2 of them, sometimes 3 of them per color, I don't really want to play. This is Revitalize, except if it's the only card in your hand, it's not even Revitalize. You don't even get to draw that card. if you're out of lessons, if you're looking at the rummage side of it. So it's basically Revitalize. I'm not interested in Revitalize, even if I have the possibility of maybe knowing what I'm drawing because it's a lesson. I don't want to play this card. I'm wheeling it and I'm wheeling it, and if I happen to really desperately want life gain for some reason, I guess. Up next is Creative Outburst. Creative Outburst is 3 blue, blue, red, red for an instant at uncommon. Creative Outburst deals 5 damage to any target. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. Put one of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Pay Prismari, discard Creative Outburst, create a treasure token. 7 mana. I can never remember what Lava Axe is that hits anything. 7 mana Lava Axe, or whatever the creature version of Lava Axe is. Plus, you get to grab the best card of the top 5. Awesome. If we're in trouble and we're not getting there, we pay 2 mana. We make a treasure. Totally fine. I like this card quite a bit. There's no way this card is on the wheel. Absolutely no chance this card is on the wheel. I think I'm on like... I'm not on second, third. It's a little expensive. It's color, committal. But I think I'm pretty happy in a 4th, 5th here. I think this card looks fantastic. Just that variability of being able to discard it if we're in trouble. You know me. If I'm not flooding, I'm screwed. I'm never lucky. I like this card quite a bit. I'm going to go 4th, 5th on this. Surprise. I like blue-red a lot, usually. Up next, we got Culling Ritual. Culling Ritual is 2 black-green for a sorcery at rare. Destroy each non-land permanent with mana value 2 or less. Add black or green for each permanent destroyed this way. These are the cards that I always undervalue, because I'm always like blowing up all the 2-drops or less, and yes, there's tokens in this set. I'm not stoked on that. That's like a sideboard card to me, which means to me, I want to like 6th through 8th or wheel this. Everybody else goes, it's a rare. And I never play it because I never see it. I think I want this like 6th through 8th, and emphasis on the 8th there, I think. If you get a decent rebate on it, that's cool. That's cool. But I'm going to pick this so low that I'll never get to play it until like week 12 of the format. So 6th through 8th pick for Culling Ritual. Put it in your sideboard. I wouldn't main deck this unless you were a little bit short on playables, and then you would very happily sideboard it when you see that it's the thing to do. Up next is Culmination of Studies. Culmination of Studies is X blue-red for a sorcery at rare. Exile the top X cards of your library. For each land card exiled this way, create a treasure token. For each blue card exiled this way, draw a card. For each red card exiled this way, Culmination of Studies deals 1 damage to each opponent. You know what I love? Cards that do what they do. This is my love-hate relationship with blue-red, right? Because we always get these cards where it's like, here's a card that could do anything or nothing. Well, I guess this card will never do nothing, but no. No. This is what back in the day I would have referred to as a Hearthstone card. This is a card that takes the variance that Magic typically doesn't have, which is the cards do what the cards do. And it introduces the variance that Magic shouldn't have, which is the cards don't do what the cards should do. F. Solid F. Don't want this card. Never, ever. Never, ever. Up next is Demogoth Titan. Demogoth Titan is Witherbloom. You know what I hate most about this, the new names? They're typically more syllable. Am I ranting like an old man for no reason? Witherbloom. Golgari. Damn it, I am. Witherbloom for a creature demon at rare. It's an 11/10. Whenever Demogoth Titan attacks or blocks, sacrifice a creature. It's an 11/10 for 4. But dang, do you need some creatures? If you've got pest tokens running around, like maybe this is where I desperately want the Cauldron, right? Like if I've got the Cauldron, I don't care what's in my hand. Everything in my hand is a pest. And this 11-10 is just slamming in and abyssing my opponent every turn. And I'm gaining a life by sacking the pet, or the pest. Oh, this sucks as a top deck. You don't get a block that trades, right? You would block with this and then have to sack it. But just don't get in that situation, right? I think in the average scenario, this card's just really good. And I think if you even remotely attempt to make sure that you're getting pests and such, or, you know, I might play this in black-white as a black creature. I'm going to have Inklings running around. I think this card's good. I think this card's good, and you're going to die with it in your hand or on the board and then rapidly into the graveyard some amount of the time. But I think I'm going to start this very high. I think I start this as a first pick because I think I am taking this over whatever good removal or bomb on common is in the pack. Yeah, let's go first pick on this. Let's go first pick. There's going to be some games of Strixhaven that aren't games. Up next is Demigoth Woe Eater. Demigoth Woe Eater is 1 green Witherbloom. Let's do that again. 1 black Witherbloom green for a creature demon at uncommon. It's a 7/6 for 4. At the beginning of your upkeep, sack a creature. When you sacrifice Demogoth Woe Eater, each opponent discards a card, you draw a card, and you gain 2 life. I like the Titan a lot more. I think. This, you have to sack a creature every turn. You don't have a choice. But you get something when this dies. Your opponent discards a card, you draw a card, you gain 2 life. This is still good. This is still quite good. This is not going to abyss quite as guaranteed. 6 toughness is not 10. 6 toughness is not 10 toughness. You can block with this. That's also true. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if this one's harder to cast. Like, you're never splashing this one. It is also sack upkeep, which means you don't even get the chump block with it. I don't know which one I like more. I like this one too, I think. I'm going to put this one second, third pick. I do think I like the 11-10 just a little tiny bit more than this one. Call me crazy, but I like the rare one just a little bit more. This has a failsafe if you can sack it to yourself to get the effect if needed. You can sack the other one to itself as well. You just obviously doesn't have an effect. Up next is Deadly Brew. Deadly Brew is black-green for a sorcery at uncommon. Each player sacrifices a creature or planeswalker. If you sacrificed a permanent this way, you may return another permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. Sorcery speed, double edict. I get a permanent back. Not a big fan. Edicts aren't great. Your opponent obviously has agency and intelligence and is not going to pick the scary thing. They're going to pick the worst thing. There are going to be tokens running around. I do think people are overestimating how many tokens by a tinch. Just a tinch. Not much, but just a tinch. I think people are overestimating tokens. Let's say 5% people are estimating how many tokens there's going to be. But yeah, they're going to have crud to sack. So this is kind of like black-green, sack a creature, return a creature to your hand, which is not the literal worst, but it's pretty bad. So I think I put this on the wheel. I don't think I'm going out of my way to play Deadly Brew, and I don't think most people will either. Up next is Decisive Denial. Decisive Denial is green-blue for an instant. That's the only raised dead in the format. Dang. Maybe it goes up slightly then. Although I think like most raised deads, this does obviously depend on the quality of your deck, right? The more bombs you have, the more you really want to be raising dead. Let's go eighth pick on that. Up next is Decisive Denial. Decisive Denial is green and a blue for an instant at uncommon. Choose one. Target creature you control fights target creature you don't control at instant speed. Cool. Counter target non-creature spell unless its controller pays 3. Meh. It's a fight spell. It's an instant speed fight spell. Obviously, you need to have creatures. Instant speed fight spells that don't give power and toughness boosts. Fight spells that don't give power and toughness boosts are nowhere near as good as you think they are. They're still fine. You still want to have these. In green, you're probably going to have pretty big things generally. This is like a fourth, fifth pick, I think. You can keep it around until you need to use it. And then if that situation does pop up where you can successfully counter a non-creature spell, cool. Awesome. So yeah, let's go fourth, fifth on Decisive Denial. Don't overestimate your fight spells too much. They are very good, but they need to give power and toughness boosts. They really do to be good. Prey Upon is not quite as good a card as it once was back in Innistrad. Up next is Dina Soul Stepper. Dina Soul Steeper is black-green for a legendary creature Dryad Druid at uncommon. She's a 1/3. Whenever you gain life, each opponent loses 1 life. Cool. Always love that effect. Pay 1, sack another creature. Dina Soul Steeper gains +X/+0 until end of turn, where X is the sacrifice creature's power. I don't quite know why I want the second ability. If I have a 6 power creature, why would I not attack with the 6 power creature? It's a nice bit of, oh no, it's dying, let's get maybe some sort of little bit of value out of it. So that's cool. It's not a downside, but I don't think that second ability is too much of an upside. But the first ability, if you're black-green and you're gaining a bunch of life, you have built a life gain deck. This is Zulaport Cutthroat. This is, you know, this is any number of those triggered drain effects, essentially. And it's going to do some work. Unfortunately, she's legendary. You can't stack her. But I think she's pretty good. I'll like 4th, 5th picker. Pick her highly if I'm already thinking that I'm heading into that life gain deck. Up next is Double Major. Double Major is green-blue for an instant at rare. Copy target creature spell you control, except it isn't legendary if the spell is legendary. Hate this card. Absolutely terrible. Absolutely terrible. If you didn't like Mystic Reflection, I'm going to say, this is sort of in that same vein. This is creature spell. It has to be on the stack. You essentially have to put on a green-blue tax to a creature that you cast to copy it. Clones that don't copy opponent stuff are significantly worse, and clones that only copy your stuff as you're casting them is deeply mediocre. This is an F. I don't want to play this card ever. Everybody should have access to the heat map if you are on desktop. Up next is Dramatic Finale. Dramatic Finale is Silver Quill, Silver Quill, Silver Quill, Silver Quill for an enchantment at rare. Creature tokens you control get +1/+1. Whenever one or more non-token creatures you control die, create a 2/1 white and black Inkling creature token with flying. This ability triggers only once each turn. This card's awesome. Love this card. Try refreshing MHPMK2. This card's fantastic. Get yourself some of them 2/1 flyers. If you're in white-black, your mascot's tokens, I think, are the best ones because they fly. They're going to be 3/2 flyers, just like the red-white 3/2s on the ground. Your non-token creatures are going to die into those creatures. Yeah, you only get once a turn, but I think this is an easy first pick. I don't know if I'd play this in Witherbloom as a black, make my pests 2/2s. I don't know if 2/2s on the ground are that awesome, but in my my Silver Quill decks, this is going to be awesome. Going to love it. Up next is Elemental Expressionist. Elemental Expressionist is Prismari. For a creature orc wizard at rare, it's a 4/4 with Magecraft. Choose target creature you control. Until end of turn, it gains. If this creature would leave the battlefield, exile it instead of putting it anywhere else. And when you exile this creature, create a 4/4 blue and red elemental creature token. 4/4 for 4. The Magecraft is a little bit interesting, because if we're doing a sorcery, our opponent knows that they're not going to kill the thing. But if we do have combat tricks or such, it can be very surprising to be like, haha, you fool. You traded my 2/2 for your 2/2, and now I have a 4/4. Haha. White. Lorehold, I might do that. I probably would do that, in fact, I think. But yeah, this card's great. I think it's a pretty easy first pick. It solidly passes the vanilla test. Hybrid looks hard to cast, but it's actually very easy to cast if you're in those colors. Yeah, this looks great. And if you ever even get one 4/4 off of this effect, that's awesome. And if you get more, whew, nice. Up next is Elemental Masterpiece. Elemental Masterpiece is 5 blue-red for a sorcery at common. Create 2 4/4 blue and red elemental creature tokens. Prismari, discard it, make a treasure. It's not great. 7 mana for 2 4/4s is fine. I like 2 4/4s way more than I like 1 8/8. I'll tell you that much. It's a shame they don't fly, because again, those dolphins look like they're in the air to me. I don't care that dolphins swim instead of fly. Who knows what happens on Strixhaven. If you're not getting to that 7 mana, getting to make the treasure is nice. Getting to make that treasure will help you cast other things. I think you still wheel this, though. I think you wheel. You could probably find some better stuff. And if you're not, like, I don't think the Prismari decks are fighting over this card. I think you can wheel this. Up next is Elemental Summoning. Elemental Summoning is 3 blue-red for a sorcery lesson. Is this our first lesson? We're an hour and 20 minutes into this stream, and this is our first lesson. Lessons are cards that are sorceries. That's it. That's all the rules. Lesson does not have any rules attached to it. 3 blue-red for a sorcery lesson at common. Make a 4/4 blue and red elemental creature token. This is interesting because this is one of the ones where, like, if you're somehow desperate for a card, you could put this in your deck and not feel bad about it. But really, you're putting this in the sideboard, and if you're learning ever, cool. You just drew a 4/4. It's not an amazing card, but it was essentially free, right? So, you know, I'm looking to pick this up, like, I guess 6th through 8th pick, I think. Because I don't think you can pick lessons too highly. Like, I am not bullish on lessons. I'm not on 4/4 for 5 that gets drawn, not draws. So this is going to be a big conversation for the first few weeks of this format, is where you pick lessons correctly. And I don't think they're free picks. I think people are like, haha, it goes my sideboard, it's free. But you're picking this over other cards. If you're second, third picking this because it's a lesson, you're picking this over removal. You're picking this over some, like, very bomby cards so that it can go in your sideboard, maybe to be drawn if you get a learn card. The learn cards aren't blowing my mind. There's some that I don't want to play. The first one that we've seen so far, I don't want to play. Like gain 4 life. Learn. I don't want to play that. So I don't think these are free picks. I think if you treat these as free picks, you are very much missing some very good cards that could go in your real deck. The deck you're definitely going to play rather than sideboard. So I'm putting this one like 6th through 8th. That's where I'm going to start. Because I think people are going to be too high on lessons. Up next is Eureka Moment. Eureka Moment is 2 green-blue. And remember, 6th through 8th pick doesn't mean bad. 6th through 8th pick just means that it's not a bomb. It's not removal. It's not something that I'm going, oh my God, I got there. Which I'm not doing with any of those any of the lessons, really. Maybe the removal one. Up next is Eureka Moment. Eureka Moment is 2 green-blue for an instant at common. Draw 2 cards. You may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. So it's inspiration, slightly harder to cast, and maybe you get to put a land down. Sure. This will help you maybe get to your land drops for what Quandrix wants to be doing, but I think this is a card that you can go a little bit late. I'm on like a 6th through 8th pick here. I would not expect to get this on the wheel, but I think 6th through 8th is about right for this. Yeah, mid-pack. That's the other thing to keep in mind. 6th through 8th pick is the 3rd worst choice. 6th through 8th pick is still middle of the pack or better. Remember that. Up next is Exhilarating Elocution. Exhilarating Elocution is 2 white-black for a sorcery at common. Put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature you control. Other creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. Sorcery speed. 4 mana. 2 counters stick around. You can wheel this. You can easily wheel this. Just like every Warhorn Blast, Trumpet Blast, etc., you can wheel this. If you're going wide, if you look like you're going to have a whole lot of Inkling creatures, honestly, you could probably just play better cards. Because if you're playing a bunch of Inklings, you should just be winning in the air anyways. This is just kind of win more-ish. But there are decks that will want 1-ish of these, and you should be able to get these on the wheel easily. Up next is Expressive Iteration. Expressive Iteration is blue-red for a sorcery at uncommon. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. Put 1 of them into your hand. Put 1 of them on the bottom of your library and exile 1 of them. You may play the exiled card this turn. This is a cool effect. Right? Like this is Anticipate. No. What's the sorcery one? Strategic Plan? No. Strategic Plan? You know the card I'm talking about. Because you're going to pay blue-red, and you're going to draw one of those cards. You're going to exile the other one. That's the one you're going to play. And then the drawn one's going to stick in your hand, and the one in the bottom of your library is, for all intents and purposes, gone. It's a fine card. It's a sorcery. It's nice and cheap. Triggers Magecraft. Best Canlander card in the set. Could see it. Yeah, this card looks totally fine. It's not a high pick. You know, you're not taking this over bombs. You're not taking this over removal. You're not taking this over very good utility creatures. So this is 6th, 8th pick, I think. And I think this looks pretty good. As a Prismari, I'll happily play that. Up next is Fractal Summoning. Here's one of our other non-rare ways of making fractals. Quandrix. For a sorcery lesson at common, create a 0/0 green and blue fractal creature token. Put X +1/+1 counter tokens on it. Like I think all of the hybrid ones maybe, this is one that if you had to, if you don't have playables, you could put it into your deck. It wouldn't be the literal worst. It's not good, but it wouldn't be the literal worst. But again, ideally you're probably putting these in your sideboard. So this is a way to make fractals. It is a common way to make fractals. Is it the only? No, there's one other. There's 2 other common ways to all the ways to make fractals are commons below rare, except for a singular uncommon. So you know, if you're looking to go fractals, if you're looking to go Quandrix, you can pick this up. You can throw it in your sideboard. Make sure you get a couple of learn cards, and that's going to be good. Yeah, again, I'm not sure where you pick these lesson cards exactly. I think I'm still going 6th through 8th for this one. I'm not looking to start highly picking lessons in this format. I would significantly prefer to pick the learn cards before I pick the lesson cards. Because the lesson cards, if you're not putting them in your deck, they were wasted picks if you don't end up playing them. And I think that's doubly true for the ones that have colors attached to them, as opposed to the colorless ones. So let's go 6th through 8th pick for Fractal Summoning. Obviously goes up based on what you've taken prior. Up next is Fracture. Fracture is white-black for an instant. At uncommon, destroy target artifact, enchantment, or planeswalker. F. Not an F. It's a sideboard card, but it's as close as an F as you can get. The artifacts in this set are not good. The enchantments are non-existent, more or less, and the planeswalkers are mythics. Like, this should be a literal last pick, and then you put it into your sideboard, and then you never sideboard it in. And you do that 5 times. And on the 5th draft, you side it in and it feels good. Yeah, don't pick this highly. Don't waste a real pick on that card. Up next is Galzareth Prismari. Galzareth Prismari is 2 blue-red for a legendary creature, Elder Dragon at Mythic. It's a 3/4 flyer. When it enters the battlefield, create a treasure token. Artifacts you control have tap, add 1 mana of any color. Spend this mana only to cast an instant or sorcery spell. You don't have to sack your treasures, as long as you're using it for instant sorceries. Also, it's a 3/4 flyer for 4. Cool. Makes a treasure. It's got a rebate. This card's great. It's an easy snap first pick. Snap first pick. Up next is Golden Ratio. We are going to have to keep I'm going to have to keep remembering that if there's not much to talk about but a snap first pick, we just got to keep going to get through this. Golden Ratio is 1 green-blue for a sorcery at uncommon. Draw a card for each different power among creatures you control. What do I like? Tell me what I like. I like cards that do things that are the same. This does not do the same thing. If this draws you no cards, that's horrible. If this draws you 1 card, it's pretty dang bad. If this draws you 2 cards, it's a hard to cast divination. If this draws you 3 cards, that's good. I don't like it. I don't like it. I'll probably like 8th pick a shit, because realistically it's going to be a divination a fair bit of the time, but at least divination can draw you out of a really bad situation, and this can't. So maybe I actually put this on the wheel. Let's go wheel for Golden Ratio. Up next is Harness Infinity. Harness Infinity is 1 black, 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 green, green, green for an instant at Mythic. Exchange your hand and graveyard. Exile Harness Infinity. No. Up next is Hoffrey Ghostforge. Hoffrey Ghostforge is 3 red, white for a legendary... I'm not even going back to that card. Legendary creature, Dwarf Cleric at Mythic. It's a 4/5. Spirits you control have +1/+1 and have Trample and Haste. But this is a Dwarf Cleric. Where are our spirits? Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, exile it. If you do, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except, haha, here's the downside, it's a spirit. And has, when this creature leaves your battlefield, return the exiled card to the graveyard. It's one of those big downsides, just like Nightmare Shepherd had, right? Sure, you get a copy, but it's also a spirit. This card's nuts. This card's a snap first pick. This card is absolutely oppressive. Snap first pick. Splash this in your black-white deck. Absolutely. This card's nuts. Up next is Humiliate. Humiliate is white and a black for a sorcery at uncommon. Target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card from it. That player discards that card. Put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control. I think a counter and being in a set with Magecraft makes me play Duress. I think it does. I think it's still a pretty low pick. We're looking 6th to 8th. Somewhat emphasis on the 7th pick there. Yeah, this is fine. This is fine. Totally fine. Totally fine. Don't let your duress prejudice carry themselves too far, even though I usually do. Up next is Infuse with Vitality. Infuse with Vitality is black-green for an instant at common. Until end of turn, target creature gains Death Touch, and when this creature dies, return it to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control. You gain 2 life. We've seen this effect a lot in the past few years. Just returning a dying creature to the battlefield, and we get to gain 2 life. Cool. I like Demonic Embrace a little bit more because of the +2/+0. But this is a combat trick you can put in your deck and you're not going to feel horrible about. I think you get it on the wheel pretty easily. But yeah, wheel for Infuse with Vitality. It's not bad. We've seen this effect a lot. Up next is Inkling Summonings. Inkling Summoning is 1 Silver Quill for a sorcery lesson at common. Create a 2/1 white and black Inkling creature token with flying. Again, like I've said with these hybrid ones, if you have to, you shouldn't feel too bad putting this in your deck. And if you draw this off of a lesson, it's a pretty decent lesson to have. Again, there's literally no chance in hell that I'm giving this a 4th through 5th pick. I do not ever want to pick lessons that highly. How many learns have we seen so far in black and white? We saw 1, and I don't want to play it. 6th through 8th, sure. 6th through 8th, sure. But this is going to be the recurring message, day 1 going into Strixhaven. I am not going to pick the lessons above 4th, 5th-ish pick, most likely. Pack 1, remember that. Where would I pick a 2/1 flying for 3? 6th through 8th. It's not a good card. Definitely 6th through 8th. Yes, I know it's not a good way to know about the learn cards, but I have looked at the set before. I know where I'm going with lessons, and I'm very happy with the way that I'm going with lessons. Early access event should be next Wednesday. Who knows with the creator program anymore? We haven't gotten information yet. Up next is Kasmina Enigma Sage. Kasmina Enigma Sage. Jeez. Is 1 green-blue for a legendary Planeswalker Kasmina at Mythic. She starts with 2 loyalty. Each other Planeswalker you control has the loyalty abilities of Kasmina Enigma Sage. That's flavor text. +2, scry 1. This is not an F. +2, scry 1. -X, create a 0/0 green and blue creature fractal creature token. Put X +1/+1 counters on it. -8, search your library for an instant or sorcery card that shares a color with this Planeswalker. Exile that card, then shuffle. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost. 3-mana Planeswalker is always going to be good. There's virtually no way for a 3-mana Planeswalker to not be good. Scry 1 for +2 is solid. Making yourself a 2/2 Fractal and she dies for 3 mana is not literally the worst thing. Making a 3/3 and then scry some more, totally fine. Yeah, I like Kasmina quite a bit. She's a pretty easy first pick. She might not quite be a first pick. She might be a little bit more second, third here. You know, she doesn't kill anything. She does defend herself. Let's go second pick on Kasmina, but we'll see. You've always been bummed about not having enough or any lessons available. Have your drafts been correct that every single pack has had a lesson in it? Up next is Killian Inc Duelist. Killian Inc Duelist is white-black for a legendary creature, human warlock add-on common. It's a 2/2 with lifelink and menace. Spells you cast that target a creature cost 2 less to cast. 2/2 lifelink menace for 2, and spells that target a creature cost 2 less to cast. Cool. This is just all upside. It's not like a bonkers nutso amazing card. Yeah, it's not a bonker nutso amazing card, but it's totally fine. So okay, you have to remember that if you're not getting enough lessons, it could be that somebody else is just taking them way too highly, right? Like, be very careful with taking early draft formats as the way a draft format's going to be. Like, if somebody beside you has your idea and is just taking the lessons way too highly, you're never going to get to see them. And that doesn't mean that it's correct to do. Are the people who are taking the lessons super highly also winning all the drafts? Are you playing out the drafts? You might not even be playing out the drafts, right? I'm not aiming to wheel them. I'm looking to 6th or 8th pick them. Killian Duelist is fine. I'm on like a 4th, 5th pick, I think, for Killian Duelist. Totally fine creature. Yeah, totally fine creature. Not a bomb. Not even really like a utility creature. But yeah, 4th through 5th pick. Up next is Lorehold Apprentice. Lorehold Apprentice is red-white for a creature human cleric add-on common. It's a 2/2 with Magecraft. Until end of turn, spirit creatures you control gain tap. This creature deals 1 damage to each opponent. This is a cool little bit of a finisher of sorts. If you haven't really played with pingers that ping opponents, they can be really good, especially en masse. So as long as you've got a bunch of spirits going on, you know, late game, maybe they're not able to get through. You cast some stupid little spell, and then you go, haha. Tap, ping, tap, ping, tap, ping, tap, ping, tap, ping, tap, ping. You're dead. Yeah, this card seems fine. Again, like Killian, it's not a bomb. It's not a first pick. It's not a second, third pick. It's probably a little bit more on the 5th side here. 5th-ish side, I think. Does red-white have spirits beside the dwarf? Spirits are their mascot, so they make a lot of spirit tokens, yes. But yeah, let's go like 4th, 5th pick, maybe even 6th, 8th pick, kind of on the 5th, 6th range. Up next is Lorehold Command. Lorehold Command is 3 red-white for an instant at rare. Choose 2. Create a 3/2 red and white spirit creature token. Cool. Creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain indestructible and haste until end of turn. Situational, but cool when it works. Lorehold Command deals 3 damage to any target. Target player gains 3 life. Lightning Helix. Cool. Sacrifice permanent. Draw 2 cards. Situational, but cool. All 4 choices here are great. Whatever 2 you make are going to be the best for that situation. This card's quite good and probably just hits the first pick mark, I think. I don't think there's much I'm picking over this. It's removal. It's creatures. I doubt there's any uncommons I'm picking over this, so we'll just go first pick for Lorehold Command. Up next is Lorehold Excavation. Lorehold Excavation is red-white for an enchantment at uncommon. At the beginning of your end step, mill a card. If a land card was milled this way, you gain 1 life. Otherwise, Lorehold Excavation deals 1 damage to each opponent. Pay 5, exile a creature card from your graveyard. Create a tapped 3/2 red and white spirit creature token. Woof. 2 mana, do nothing. Well, no, not do nothing because it starts at your end step. 2 mana, gain a life or deal a damage. Extraordinarily late game. Make tapped spirits, but at instant speed. I know this is Lorehold's mechanic, returning stuff, or exiling, making stuff not be in your graveyard anymore, wherever it happens to go. But I don't think I like this card. You lose to mill. You're probably not milling yourself out with this. I don't think I like this. I think I'm looking to wheel this, which means I'm not going to play with it for a while because people are definitely going to play with that. Also, whatever that halo thingy is going on in the background looks Kozilek-y. Yeah, I don't think I like this. I'll start this on like the wheel. I'm going to have to play with it to see how it works, or see somebody else do it, but I'm going to start on the wheel for it. Up next is Lorehold Pledgemage. Lorehold Pledgemage is 1 Lorehold for a creature core shaman at common. It's a 2/2 with first strike. Magecraft, it gets +1/+0 until end of turn. 3 mana 2/2 first strike, sure. If it gets +1/+0, sure. Should be able to wheel this, I think. I wouldn't feel horrible 8th-ish picking it, but really you should be able to get this on the wheel. Up next is Maelstrom Muse. Maelstrom Muse is 1 blue Prismari red for a creature Djinn Wizard at uncommon. It's a 2/4 flyer. Whenever Maelstrom Muse attacks, the next instant or sorcery spell you cast this turn costs X less to cast, where X is Maelstrom Muse's power as this ability resolves. 2/4 flyer for 4 gives me probably generally a 2 mana discount. Sure. It's not bad. It's not amazing. 4th, 5th. 4th, 5th feels pretty okay for this, I think. I think it's on the lower edge of the 4th, 5th, but yeah, that feels okay to me, I think. It's definitely no Crackling Drake, that's for sure. Up next is Magma Opus. Magma Opus is 6 blue-red for an instant at Mythic. Magma Opus deals 4 damage divided as you choose among any number of targets. Tap 2 target permanents. Create a 4/4 blue and red elemental creature token. Draw 2 cards. Pay Prismari, and discard it to make a treasure token. 8 mana is a lot, but this does some stuff. 4 damage divided as you choose among any number of targets. So kill a creature, maybe kill an opponent. Tap 2 target permanents at instant speed. Make a 4/4, draw 2 cards. This seems totally solid. I think I just first pick this. Yes, you probably won't cast this a lot. This is basically an MDFC, yeah. You probably won't cast this a lot, but you get to make your treasure token if you don't, and then if you do get to cast it, you probably win. I think I first picked this. I think I first picked this pretty happily. I think people might be very afraid of that mana cost, and I'm going to first pick it. Yeah, Mystical Archives are in every booster. Make Your Mark is up next. Make Your Mark is a single Lorehold mana for an instant at common. Target creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn. When that creature dies this turn, create a 3/2 red and white spirit creature token. So +1/+0 is not exactly my favorite combat trick, but it's basically a demonic embrace, right? Except your 10/10 is not coming back as a 10/10, it's coming back as a 3/2, but that's still fine. So much like a demonic embrace or whatever, I would treat this as a pretty late pick. Probably on the wheel, wouldn't feel horrendous picking this 8th pick or so. Treat this basically exactly the same as you would treat a demonic embrace, just with the knowledge that you're not saving your bomb, but maybe you're upgrading your 2/2 or something. Up next is Manifestation Sage. Manifestation Sage is Quandrix for a creature, human, wizard at rare. It's a 2/2. When Manifestation Sage enters the battlefield, create a 0/0 green and blue fractal creature token. Put X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the number of cards in your hand. So the later the game goes, the smaller your fractal is apt to be. So there's a chance this is a 4-mana 2/2. There's a chance this is a 4-mana 3/3. This kind of needs to be a 4-mana 4/4. Which means I need to have 3 cards in my hand, one of them being this one. It's another way of getting fractals, if you decide you want to get into the fractal deck. I don't know about this card. I think people might get rare blindness on this. I think I'm going to go so like if we're casting this on 4 and like let's say we've played a land and cast something like almost every turn. We get a 2/2 and a 2/2, I think, or a 2/2 and maybe a 3/3, and then it typically will just go downhill from there. I think I'm gonna 6th through 8th pick this and never see it for a very long time because people will get rare blindness on it. Up next is Mouldering Carrick. Mouldering Carrick Crocodile is 2 black-green for a creature zombie crocodile at common. It's a 3/3 with trample and lifelink. It's fine. You're not spending a very real pick on this. You can probably wheel it. Don't feel bad picking it before pick 8, but don't spend a real high pick on this, but it's fine. I'll play a couple of these, I think. Up next is Mortality Spear. Mortality Spear is 2 black-green for an instant at uncommon. This spell costs 2 less to cast. If you gained life this turn, destroy target non-land permanent. So here's Feed the Serpent, essentially. Maybe it's a little bit more efficient. Maybe it's a little bit harder to cast. It's fine. It's removal. It's unconditional. This before would have been a first pick to me. I'm gonna start Strixhaven off the way that I finished Kaldheim, thinking that 1/1 removal is just not that good anymore. And I'm gonna put this at around 2nd, 3rd, maybe even 4th, 5th. This does get Planeswalkers, but that doesn't matter. So did Feed the Serpent. This is much better than Feed the Serpent, though. Disagree. By the time you're reliably gaining the life when you need it to get the 2-mana discount, I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference. And this does what that Feed the Serpent does, kills an artifact. I think it's basically exactly Feed the Serpent, which I'm pretty down on at this point. Yeah, Pantomime Horse. I've been very successfully on the train of 1/1 removal just not being a thing you want anymore. Creatures are way too good. Creatures do way too much on ETB that spending a turn and a card to do nothing but get rid of it just means that your opponent replaces it with another very good creature. That's been my approach to Kaldheim for the past few weeks, and it's been very successful. Feed the Serpent is exile, but Anyways, Needlethorn Drake removal needs to improve. I think creatures need to de-improve. Needlethorn Drake is green-blue for a creature Drake. At common, it's a 1/1 with flying and death touch. I prefer my Death Touchers, my 1/1 Death Touchers to be Typhoid Rats and cost 1 mana, but I'll pay 2 mana for them. Flying, sure. Yeah, I love Typhoid Rats. I love Typhoid Rats quite a bit. This is still a pretty low pick, 6th through 8th pick, but I like me some Typhoid Rats. I'm shocked this is not in green-black. I feel like literally everything suggests that this should be green-black. Maybe this is the Sarah Angel thing, where Sarah Angel is actually a green-black card or something. But yeah, 6th through 8th pick for Needlethorn Drake. Up next is Ogre Battleseer. Ogre Battleseer is 3 blue-red for a creature Ogre Shaman at common. It's a 3/4 with haste and scry 1. Pretty low pick priority here, I think. It's a fine card. 5 mana is perhaps a tinch too high for a 3/4. It has haste, which means maybe it's getting in for 3 pretty handily. I don't know that you're jamming this down and going, haha, finally, I can tap and scry for 1 for my 5 mana. But having that scry 1 available, should you not be able to attack with this, is a nice bonus to have. I think I think wheel / don't feel bad, like 8th picking this is fine. Up next is Owlin Shield Mage. Owlin Shield Mage is 3 white-black for a creature Bird Warlock at common. It's a 3/3 with flying. It's got Ward, pay 3 life. So this is kind of the cool thing they're doing with Ward now, where you can maybe change it a little bit, like paying 3 life to counter the spell. Yeah, 3/3 flyer for 5 is pretty okay. That's typically where we end up with a lot of commons. And the fact that, you know, if my opponent really wants it dead, it kind of gets 1 more attack in, right? Because they have to pay the 3 life or else it gets countered. Yeah, I think this is a totally fine card. I think 6th through 8th pick is happy with this. I don't think I want to wait for the wheel to pick up one of these. But if you've read your table right, you probably could wheel one of these. Yeah, 6th through 8th pick for Owlin Shield Mage. I should point out on the removal discussion, you still need removal. You just probably need way less than you think you do. Up next is Pest Summoning. Pest Summoning is 1 Witherbloom for a sorcery lesson at common. Create 2 1/1 black and green pest creature tokens with, when this creature dies, you gain 1 life. Again, you could put this in your main deck if you're desperate for playables and probably not feel absolutely horrible. But again, I am 6th through 8th picking this. I'm not spending a real pick on this. Like maybe pack 2 or pack 3 when I've got my learn package ready, but without knowing that I'm going to have to learn, I sure as hell don't want to be spending a real pick on a lesson that has color requirements. So 6th through 8th pick for Pest Summoning. Up next is Practical Research. Practical Research is 3 blue-red for an instant at uncommon. Draw 4 cards, then discard 2 cards unless you discard an instant or sorcery card. So 5 mana, draw 2. And I get to draw 2 of my best top 4 if we're looking at an empty hand. Possibly even better if I have sandbagged some lands or something. And if I do want to pitch an instant or sorcery, I can keep 1 extra card. This looks pretty good to me. I love instant speed card draw. A lot of people are saying Prismari is weak. Prismari, I've seen a lot of instant speed card draw for me, and I love instant speed card draw quite a bit. That said, this is not a super high pick. I don't think I'm going 4th, 5th on this, so I think I've got to go 6th through 8th, but I like this card a fair bit, and I think my Prismari decks are going to be a lot of instant speed draw. So yeah, sure, you might attack me for a few turns, but then suddenly I'm going to be having a ludicrous hand and you're going to be out of cards, and then the game's going to truly begin. Up next is Prismari Apprentice. Prismari Apprentice is blue-red for a creature human shaman at uncommon. It's a 2/2 with Magecraft. Prismari Apprentice can't be blocked this turn. If that spell has mana value 5 or greater, put a +1/+1 counter on Prismari Apprentice. 2/2 for 2. Can't be blocked if I'm casting a spell. That's cool. If we can get some counters on that, that would be good. I don't know how many 5 mana or greater instants and sorceries I can jam in my deck. But this is still fine. I think this is kind of going to go with the other ones of this cycle, and it'll be like a 4th-ish, 5th-ish pick. Up next is Prismari Command. Prismari Command is 1 blue-red for an instant at rare. Choose 2. Prismari Command deals 2 damage to any target. Target player draws 2 cards, then discards 2 cards. Target player creates a treasure token. Destroy target artifact. First command. Sure. Shock's not that exciting, but sure. Second command. Draw 2, discard 2. Sure. Double loot is okay as long as I have the cards to throw away. Make a treasure token. Cool. Destroy target artifact. Nearly worthless in this set. This command's not great. This command is not the Lorehold command that we saw. I'll tell you that much. This command's fine. You know, shock's not good, but shock's not bad. And then as long as, you know, I have this card in my hand, I know to sandbag a couple of cards. Maybe we're stuck on lands. Maybe we can throw away some very expensive cards and draw 2 cards. So this card's still fine. But I think this is more like 4th, 5th, whereas Lorehold was 1st. The command choices here are just significantly worse than most of the other ones, I think. 4th, 5th for Prismari Command. Up next is Prismari Pledgemaid. Prismari Pledgemaid is Prismari for a creature, orc, wizard at common. It's a 3/3 defender with Magecraft. It can attack as though it didn't have defender. I wish this had evasion or something. Because by the time you're like reliably triggering this to let it attack, it's probably just a vanilla 3/3 on like turn 5 or 6 or 7, which is fine, but not amazing. And you're probably not going to like sandbag spells for that turn where, haha, you get to attack with a 3/3. It's still a defender, and 3/3 defenders have been fine. I remember Phalanx something from original Theros. So I think this might be one of the worst of this cycle, but I think I'll still put it 6th through 8th, but I won't put it 4th, 5th with the other ones. Up next is Quandrix Apprentice. Quandrix Apprentice is green-blue for a creature, human, wizard at uncommon. It's a 2/2 with Magecraft. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may reveal a land card from among them. Put that card into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. Yeah, I mean, there's so many cycles in this format. We've basically talked about this. It's this cycle, like the one that we just looked at and the other ones. I think it's 4th through 5th pick. It is a fine 2-drop that has a fine ability. It's not an amazing ability. Hopefully it gets you some lands. Just pretend that you didn't see what those other cards were that went to the bottom of your deck so that you don't feel bad. You shouldn't feel bad. They were random cards. They may as well have been on the bottom of your deck already. But yeah, it's a 4th, 5th pick. It's fine. Commands are for best of 1. Commands have existed before. Commands are a very old card type. The command idea is not new. Quandrix Command is 1 green-blue for an instant at rare. Choose 2. Return target creature or planeswalker to its owner's hand. Cool. Counter target artifact or enchantment spell. Worthless. Put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature. Cool. Target player shuffles up to 3 target cards from their graveyard into their library. Not literally worthless, but kind of. Yeah, I mean, this one's better than Prismari, I think. 2 +1/+1 counters and bounce a creature for 3 mana. Seems pretty good to me. Seems pretty darn good. And then in the extremely rare situation where command choice number 2 or command choice number 4 is relevant, cool. You got there. This one, again, I don't think is as good as the Lorehold one. I think it's better than the Prismari one. So I think I'm going to go 2nd, 3rd pick on Quandrix Command. Up next is Quandrix Cultivator. Quandrix Cultivator is 1 green Quandrix blue for a creature turtle druid at uncommon. It's a 3/4. When Quandrix Cultivator enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic forest or island card, put it into the battlefield, then shuffle. So typically 4 mana is not where I'm looking to ramp, but with Quandrix having expensive stuff, caring about 8 lands to an extent, as much as I've brought up, oh, Quandrix cares about having 8 lands, we haven't seen one of those cards yet, right? And we're 2 hours into the set review. But yeah, in this format, I have to imagine that turn 4, you're still going to be pretty happy with ramping, plus a 3/4 is left behind. So this card seems pretty good to me. I think I'm probably second, third picking this. Maybe a little bit emphasis on third pick more than second. But yeah, I'm looking to pick this pretty highly. I think it's really good. I think it does exactly what these color combos wants to do. Ramping out in this format probably really pushes you ahead. Am I looking to color commit earlier in this than other draft formats? Yes-ish, because there's only 5 decks that you can play, remember, which is a bad sign for my enjoyment of this format, although there has been a couple of Ravnica formats I've liked. But you also have to keep in mind there will be fixing, which means splashing is not the hardest thing in the world. So I pick this highly, and then suddenly blue-red shows up. I push into Prismari. I grab just like a little tiny bit of fixing, because there are dual lands in this format that we'll see, and I cast this as 1 green, blue, blue, with green being my splash. I don't know that I'd actually splash this card, but insert a really good card here. Splashing will be easier in this format than normal. Don't go 3 colors, I don't think, but splashing will be pretty easy. So you should not be remotely afraid of first picking or highly picking a dual color card. Up next is Quandrix Pledgemage. Quandrix Pledgemage is 1 Quandrix for a creature Merfolk Druid at common. It's a 2/2 with Magecraft. Put a +1/+1 counter on it. This card seems pretty good. 3 mana 2/2 that hopefully will pretty quickly be a 3 mana 3/3, and then a 4/4, and then a 5/5, and then your opponent has to spend real removal on your common 3-drop. I think this card's pretty good. I'm going to put it highly. I don't know that I can put it 4th, 5th though, because this is that card that somebody mentioned probably an hour ago. Spellgorger Weird. Yeah, it's a Spellgorger Weird, which was never a 4th, 5th pick, but 6th through 8th here. 6th through 8th for Quandrix Pledgemage. Up next is Quintorius, Field Historian. Quintorius is 3 red-white for a legendary creature, Elephant Cleric, add on common. It's a 2/4. Spirit creatures you control get +1/+0. Whenever one or more cards leave your graveyard, create a 3/2 red and white spirit creature token. So it is a 2/4 for 5. Makes my spirits bigger, so hopefully I've got a bunch of those spirits. Was that a Duran Duran reference? And so Lorehold's thing is removing stuff from the graveyard. I think you only have to make 1 spirit to be pretty happy with this. But you do have to make that first spirit, I think. I'm going to have to play with Lorehold, because I haven't wrapped my head around the removing stuff from your graveyard yet. I think, like, this is obviously a good payoff for doing so. The things that do remove stuff from your graveyard, I haven't typically seen them be great-ish. But I don't know. We'll have to see on this. I'll start this at like a 4th through 5th, or maybe even a 2nd, 3rd, and build around. But I'm going to have to see how Lorehold works and how it plays out. I know people, and I think we've already talked about this, people will commonly put their trust in WotC. Well, WotC designed this mechanic. It must work. I've been around the block long enough to know that that's not always true. Up next is Radiant Scroll Wielder. Radiant Scroll Wielder is 2 red-white for a creature Dwarf Cleric. At rare, it's a 2/4. Instant and sorcery spells you control have lifelink. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile an instant or sorcery card at random from your graveyard. You may cast it this turn. If a spell cast this way would be put into your graveyard, exile it instead. I like when my cards do what my cards do. So at least fairly rapidly, you're going to know what spell's going to be taken out of your graveyard because it's going to be the only one there. But like the times where it's going to be like, oh, I need that removal spell out of my graveyard. Random choice. Oh, I got my pump spell. And now I can't use my pump spell for later. So I don't know. I'm wondering about this one as well. I wonder if people get rare blindness on this. I don't think it's first pick. I think it's a build around. You may cast it, but it exiles. You don't have to cast it, but you will never get to cast it ever again. So at the beginning of your upkeep, exile it. You may cast it, and then it stays in exile. If a spell cast this way. If a spell cast this way would be put into your graveyard, exile it instead. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile an instant or sorcery. Yeah, so I don't know. I'm on like... I don't think it's a bomb. I think you build around it to an extent. Let's go 4th, 5th on this. I'm going to have to see how it plays out. 4th, 5th. Again, rare blindness. I'm probably not going to get to play with this card for a while if I'm picking it 4th, 5th. Up next is Reconstruct History. Reconstruct History is 2 red, white for a sorcery at uncommon. Return up to 1 target artifact card. Up to 1 target enchantment card. Up to 1 target instant card. Cool. Up to 1 target sorcery card. Cool. Up to 1 target planeswalker card from your graveyard to your hand. You're not getting a planeswalker back. Exile Reconstruct History. Realistically, this is returning up to 2 cards to your hand, an instant and a sorcery. If you've got a planeswalker and you've already cast it and it's died, and you have one of the extraordinarily few artifacts in the set that are playable, if there's any, cool. But really, you're returning an instant and or maybe a sorcery. For 4 mana, I guess you're triggering your Elephant. Unfortunately, only once because it's 1 or more cards. Not a huge fan of this. I think I wheel this card. I just don't think there's enough going on with it. Up next is Relic Sloth. Relic Sloth is 3 red-white for a creature beast at common. It is a 4/4 with Vigilance and Menace. Yeah, so 4/4 for 5 with Vigilance Menace is not bad. Not amazing. It's not bad. You're going to need creatures. Yes, this is the instant and sorcery set. You're going to need creatures. This is limited. I think 6th through 8th. Maybe even the wheel. Probably the wheel. Let's do this on the wheel. You can reorder your graveyard in limited. Yes, you can only not do that if there's cards that matter about the order. Which is like Legacy and Vintage and Cube. Some cubes. Up next is Returned Past Caller. Returned Past Caller is 3 red, Lorehold, white. For a creature spirit cleric at uncommon, it's a 4/2 flyer. When it ETBs, return target spirit, instant, or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. 6 mana 4/2 flyer is a little tiny bit expensive, but you do get to probably return a card. Question, how many spirit cards are there? There are 12 spirits. There are 10 below rare. That's a fair number. That's a fair number. 2/1 flyer tokens, though. I'm not sure how you're returning a token from your graveyard. Yeah, this seems fine. It's a little tiny bit expensive, but a 4/2 flyer is going to do some work. The spirit tokens are, but the joke there was that tokens won't be in your graveyard. You're going to have instant sorceries to return. You're probably going to have spirits to return. I think all 10 of those spirits were in red and white. Yeah, literally every spirit in the set is red or white. Oh, you mean they trade against this? Oh, sure. Trades against a ton of things. But what if they don't have them? Then you have a 4/2 flyer. Yeah, I think this card's fine. It's a little tiny bit expensive, so I'm going to put it like 4th, 5th pick. But I think I'd be very happy to have one of these in Lorehold. I don't know about a second, because 6 mana does seem like a lot for Lorehold. Up next is Rip Apart. Rip Apart is red-white for a sorcery at uncommon. Choose one. Rip Apart deals 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker, or destroy target artifact or enchantment. Destroy target artifact or enchantment does not matter in this set. 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker is fine, but this is a lowish pick from where I would have normally put it. Sorcery speed also hurts it. Doesn't hit face. I think you pick this like 4th, 5th, maybe even 6th through 8th. I'm just not up on this 1/1 removal. Not for me. Up next is Rise of Extus. Rise of Extus is 4 Silver Quill for a sorcery at common. Exile target creature. Exile up to 1 target instant or sorcery card from a graveyard. Learn. So 6 mana sorcery, exile target creature. Like I said, I'm not huge on 1-for-1 removal. That doesn't mean don't ever play any ever. I would play one of these in my deck. This is great art, yeah. Exiling 1 target instant or sorcery card from a graveyard probably has literally no meaning. And then you get to learn off of this. I hope you have a lesson, because you're probably not rummaging this late in the game. Maybe you are, though. Maybe you sandbagged some lands. So overall, I think this is fine as like a one of. I think you pick this pretty late, 6th through 8th or so. You know, later packs, you may even be able to wheel one of these, and you definitely don't play multiples. Up next is Rutha, Mercurial Artist. Rutha is 1 blue-red for a legendary creature orc shaman. At uncommon, it's a 1/4. Pay 2, return Rutha to its owner's hand. Copy target instant or sorcery spell you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. It's not bad. It's a 1/4 for 3 until such a point that you have 2 more mana than whatever your spell costs, and you have a reason to want to copy it. Generally, you're going to have a reason to want to copy most spells, but you do have to return her. It's a cute card. I think I'm on like... Definitely not 1st, definitely not 2nd, 3rd. I think I could 4th, 5th this, I think. Prismari has some pretty impactful spells. Copying something like a Magma Opus would be nuts with this. So yeah, let's go 4th, 5th for Rutha. Just be aware there is some setup cost going on here. It's going to make some things pretty expensive. Up next is Rushed Rebirth. Rushed Rebirth is black-green for an instant at rare. Choose target creature. When that creature dies this turn, search your library for a creature card with lesser mana value. Put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. This one's pretty interesting. You do need spells for Magecraft, but... Ooh, I paid 5 mana total to give my first striker +2/+0 instead of +1/+0. You know me. I don't go in for extraordinarily cute plays that involve multiple cards to get very minimal bonuses. Choose target creature. Yeah, so this is interesting because it's kind of like Demonic Embrace, right? Except it doesn't return that creature. It returns an entirely different creature. Hopefully, almost definitely. This is one of those cards where you have to know what remains in your deck. Like, you don't want to cast this on a 3-drop and then go, oh, crud, I have no 2 or 1 drops left in my deck. This is an interesting card. It is not a 1st pick. It is not a 2nd, 3rd pick. It works on opponent's creatures too. Choose target creature when the creature dies. Search your library. Oh, that's cute. That's cute. That's cute. That's cute. Still don't like it. It doesn't do anything. for such a long time in such a number of situations. I still don't think I like it. Let's go 6th through 8th. I'll probably never see it because it's a rare. Up next is Shadewing Laureate. Shadewing Laureate is white, silver quill, black for a creature human warlock add-on common. It's a 2/2. Flying. Whenever another creature you control with flying dies, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. So it's a Windrake, which has not been remotely as good as they used to be. But it's a Windrake that can put counters on things when your other flying creatures die. If you have a crap ton of flying creatures, you're probably already winning, and this will help you win some more, and this gives you a little bit more extra insurance. It's not a bad card. It's not a bad card. But I don't think it's 4th, 5th. I think we're on 6th, 8th for this one. Obviously goes up depending on what your deck is. And yeah, like if you're jammed up on flyers, this is a little bit win more, but let's go 6th, 8th for Shadewing Laureate. Up next is Shadrick Silverquill. Shadrick Silverquill is 3 white black for legendary creature Elder Dragon at Mythic. It's a 2/5 flying double strike. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may choose 2. Each mode must target a different player. Target player creates a 2/1 white and black Inkling creature token with flying. Target player draws a card and loses a life. Target player puts a +1/+1 counter on each creature they control. This card's insane. Why this one's 5 mana and some of the other ones are like 8, I have no idea. This card is just absolutely nuts. It's a virtual 4/5 flyer for 5 mana. If it's correct, you are jamming counters on a bunch of creatures on your side of the board, and you are giving your opponent a 2/1 that has to chump this now 3/5 double striker. If your opponent doesn't have any creatures, give them the +1/+1 counters, and you draw a card, or you make a 2/1. This card's nuts. It reminds me of Citadel Siege. It's a first pick. There's not much else to talk about. Up next is Silverquill Apprentice, white-black for a creature human warlock at uncommon. It's a 2/2 with Magecraft. Target creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn. This is fine. This is fine. It's not great. 6th through 8th pick. It's a bear with a little upside. 6th through 8th for Silverquill Apprentice. You don't even need to choose to do anything if you don't want to. True. I can't imagine there's any situation where you don't want to. There might be, but I don't think you're never not choosing to do to, I think. Up next is Silverquill Command. Silverquill Command is 2 white black for a sorcery at or rare. Choose 2. Target creature gets +3/+3 and gains flying until end of turn. That's awesome. Return target creature with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. That's pretty dang cool. Target player draws a card and loses a life. That's pretty cool. Target opponent sacks creature. That's less cool. If opponent has a board, I think all those things are bad. I mean, if your opponent has a board, are you attacking? Yeah, Silverquill Command looks fantastic as well. +3/+3 and flying is a very real trick. Very real trick. That will end games out of nowhere. Bringing back a 2-drop is not crazy, but is a thing that exists. Drawing a card is nice. Target opponent sacrificing a creature is probably the one thing that you're not terribly interested in doing. It is sorcery speed, but +3/+3 and flying doesn't have to be instant speed. We had this in Aura Devastation, and it was amazing. I think it was actually +2/+2 in flying, but you could also rebuy that spell. I think this card's fantastic. I think it's a first pick. Very good card here. Up next is a Silverquill Pridemage. Silverquill Pridemage is 1 Silverquill for a creature vampire cleric at common. It's a 3/1 with Magecraft. Silverquill Pledgemaid gains your choice of flying or lifelink until end of turn. Cool. This is a Magecraft ability I really like. My 3/1 suddenly flies. Maybe it got a combat trick on it or something. Maybe they don't have a block and I get lifelink. This is all good. This is a 6th through 8th pick. You're not wasting a very real pick on this, but you'll play these. Pretty handy. 6th through 8th for Silverquill Pledgemaid. Up next is Silverquill Silencer. Silverquill Silencer is white-black for a creature human cleric at rare. It's a 3/2. As Silverquill Silencer enters the battlefield, choose a non-land card name. Whenever an opponent casts a spell with the chosen name, they lose 3 life and you draw a card. Yeah. Don't get too high on this. This is a constructed plant. It is a 3/2 for 3. You can still play it. It is still fine. Game 1, you're probably naming something just in the absolute blind. Game 2 and Game 3, you might have a little bit better of an idea of what they have and what they have not cast yet. And maybe you can either strand them with that or make them pay 3 life to cast that card. But it's not that amazing. So don't get too high on this. I think you should probably honestly wheel this card. It's just not that good. And this is very interesting. The person who asked, is there any difference between best of 1 and best of 3? I don't think you ever played this card in best of 1. Ever. Best of 3. I think this card is very main deckable, but still not great. So wheel your Silverquill Silencer. Up next is Spectacle Mage. Spectacle Mage is 1 blue-red for a creature bird shaman at common. It's a 2/2 with flying. Instant sorcery spells you cast with mana value 5 or greater cost 1 less to cast. A 3/2 for 2 is not playing it? No. No, like it's just a creature. Like if that was a common 3/2 for 2. Ignore the rarity. Ignore that it has words on it. Are you going, ooh, a 3/2 for 2? No, you're going, oh, that's an efficient cost. I'll see if I can wheel that. See if I can find a spot for it. Don't get rarity blindness. Spectacle Mage seems fine. 3 mana 2/2 flyers, a Windrake. It's going to make all those expensive cards that I'm playing a little tiny bit cheaper. Yeah. Seems fine to me. How highly are you grabbing that 3/2 for 2? I said I wasn't going to talk to chat during these. This is one of the reasons these are going too long. Like, sure, it's the aggro archetype. You're taking that over removal? You're taking that over bombs? You're taking that over, like, 7th pick? Okay. Like, it's not a card that you're spending a very high... Like, 4th, 5th means... 4th, 5th are extraordinarily real picks. In sets that have 99% of all creatures having rules text on them. And you're going to take a vanilla 3/2. I can't get... Even if it's the Aggro College, I can't get behind that as a 4th, 5th pick. I think that's still absolutely the wheel. Anyways, this card I like a fair bit. The trick here with Prismari is how many expensive spells can you cast, or can you put in your deck? So, I don't know. It won't be a vanilla game 2 and 3. Sure. So I'm going to put this like... probably still 6th through 8th. Again, it's a Windrake. It's just a Windrake with some stuff. There's so much stuff in these sets. Close to closing chat, by the way. 6th through 8th pick. Up next is Spirit Summoning. Spirit Summoning is 1 Boros for a sorcery lesson at common. Create a 3/2 red and white spirit creature token. Again, like all of these, you can put them in the main deck. If you're desperate for a creature, you should put it into the sideboard if you have some learned cards. I'm going to 6th through 8th pick this, I think. It's a vanilla 3/2. Up next is 2 white-black for a Spiteful Squad. Spiteful Squad is a creature human warlock at common. It's a 0/0. It's got Death Touch. When it ETBs, you put 2 +1/+1 counters on it. When it dies, put its counters on target creature you control. It's a little expensive for a 2/2 Death Toucher. I do like that you get to move those counters over to something else when it trades, though. That is a really cool little thing that makes your Death Toucher just that little bit more valuable. Again, I think I'm on 6th through 8th pick for this. It's a card that I'm pretty much always playing, and I need to hammer this point home. 6th through 8th does not mean bad. 6th through 8th means you're picking it in the higher half of the entire pack. 6th through 8th pick for Spiteful Squad here. I think it's a pretty decent card. Up next is Square Up. Square Up is 1 Quandrix for an instant at common. Target creature has base power and toughness 4/4 until end of turn. This card's deeply mediocre. Deeply, deeply, deeply mediocre. I don't want to play this. This is basically an F. Cards are too good these days. You don't have room for this in your deck. F. Solid F. Up next is Stonebound Mentor. Stonebound Mentor is 1 red-white for a creature's Spirit Advisor. It's a common. It's a 3/3. Whenever one or more cards leave your graveyard, scry 1. So this is why I'm just like, I'm not sure about the Lorehold thing. Like, here's another payoff. We scry. Woo! It is a 3/3 for 3 at worst, though. So, like, I think I'm still 6th through 8th picking this. No, I think I'm wheeling this. And then later on, if I'm doing the Lorehold things, I can 6th through 8th pick it. And I'll remind you, even the wheel does not mean bad. You pick up very playable cards on the wheel. Up next is Tanazir Quandrix. It has been 2 hours and 24 minutes, and I desperately require the D&D set to be simpler than this, or Magic is dead to me. Tanazir Quandrix. Tanazir Quandrix is 3 green-blue for a legendary creature, Elder Dragon at Mythic. It's a 4/4 with flying and trample. When Tanazir Quandrix enters the battlefield, double the number of +1/+1 counters on target creature you control. Whenever Tanazir Quandrix attacks, you may have the base power and toughness of other creatures you control become equal to Tanazir Quandrix's power and toughness until end of turn. Seems good. 4/4 Flample for 5 is very good. If the D&D set is not literally a core set, I think WotC has absolutely no clue what they're doing with their product anymore. The D&D set not being a core set would be an absolutely idiotic business move. So you have to have counters. The counters are basically just going to be fractals, right? Strixhaven, counter, rarity, less than rare. If you're not splashing this, the counters are basically going to be fractals. There's a couple of cards that can get counters on them. So, you know, that's cool. If you've got your fractals, if you've got your way of getting counters, this has even more value. This already has huge value of being a 4/4 Flample for 5, as well as making all of your other creatures 4/4s and potentially larger. It's a snap first pick. There's not really much else to talk about it. Up next is Teach by Example. Teach by Example is Prismari for an instant at common. When you cast your next instant or sorcery spell this turn, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. No. I don't want to play these cards in normal sets. I don't care about Magecraft. I don't care about instant sorceries mattering. I don't want to play this card. This is an F. I have no interest in playing this. You know what I'll play instead of this? Another spell. It's a bad card. It's an F. Up next is Tend the Pests. Tend the Pests is a black-green instant at uncommon. As an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice a creature. Create X 1/1 black and green pest tokens with all the pest stuff, where X is the sacrifice creature's power. So this is sort of like our village rites, I guess, kind of. Except you get some number of pests. It's not bad. It's not bad, but you require a creature. You require a creature of reasonable size. You require the situation in which that creature is dying, or something is happening to it, or for some reason you want to sacrifice it, and you have the black-green available. You could sack the 11/10 demon and make 11 1/1s. Yeah, if it's dying anyways, but remember, we're discussing where are we picking this card, right? And if we have to start going down a decision tree of, well, if this, and then this, and then this, and then this, then this is not a high pick. I think you should be able to wheel this no problem, yeah. Because, like, nobody who's not black-green is playing this card. Nobody is splashing this card. So you're fighting with, at most, probably one other person at the table for this card. And I don't think you're even fighting over this card. So I think a wheel is perfectly reasonable here. Up next is Thrilling Discovery. Thrilling Discovery is red-white for a sorcery at common. You gain 2 life. Then you may discard 2 cards. If you do, draw 3 cards. Seems really bad. This seems exceptionally bad. 2 mana, sorcery speed, gain 2 life. You must have 2 cards in your hand in order to draw those 3 cards. This is a wheel at best, and I don't know if I'm ever going to resolve this card. I think it's an F for me. Up next is Vanishing Verse. It's Cathartic Reunion, and Cathartic Reunion was an F for me. Vanishing Verse. Vanishing Verse is white and a black for an instant at rare. Exile target mono-colored permanent. So here we go. 2 mana, instant speed, super efficient, instant speed, 1-for-1 removal. Slightly conditional in that we can only hit mono-colored permanents. I assume whoever's choosing wheel is behind the video. This is a first pick. This is the removal that is efficient and cheap and will kill the things that you need to do. Best things in the set will be 2-colored though. Yes, but your removal has to kill whatever's down at the moment, and they won't always have 2-colored things. This will still be a very good pick. Maybe not a first pick. Maybe it'll be second, third. But things are going to have to die, and this will make a lot of things die. So second, third pick for Vanishing Verse here. Up next is Velomachus Lorehold. Velomachus Lorehold is 5 red-white for a legendary creature, Elder Dragon at Mythic. It's a 5/5 flying, vigilance, haste. Whenever it attacks, look at the top 7 cards of your library. You can cast an instant or sorcery card with mana value less than or equal to Lorehold's power from among them without paying its mana cost. Put the rest in the bottom of your library in a random order. So even if you never hit that, you still have a 5/5 flying, vigilance, haste. It costs 7, but this card's nuts. It's an easy first pick. Up next is Venerable Warsinger. Venerable Warsinger is 1 red-white for a spirit cleric at common. It's a 3/3 with vigilance and trample. Whenever Venerable Singer deals combat damage to a player, you may return target creature card with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is the amount of damage Venerable Warsinger dealt to that player. This card's very good. Very good. 3/3 for 3 with vigilance, with trample. It's going to return everything from your graveyard that is 3 or less CMC. That's fantastic. And if you need something bigger, jam a combat trick on it. This seems like an easy first pick. This card is just massive amounts of value. If you hit with this thing like once, you're just going to snowball out of control. Easy first pick. Up next is Witherbloom Apprentice. Witherbloom Apprentice is black-green for a creature human druid at uncommon. It's a 2/2 with Magecraft. Each opponent loses a life and gains a life. Here's a Magecraft payoff I like. I really like this Magecraft payoff. This encourages me to play a bunch of the spells that I don't really want to play. You know, this might make me play that stupid Revitalize Learn spell. Just jamming up a bunch of these. Unfortunately, they're uncommons, which means you're probably not getting 2 of these. If you do, congratulations. Honestly, you're a little bit lucky to get 1, because on average, there's 0.9 per draft pod. But yeah, I think this is like a 4th, 5th pick. You build around it a little bit, obviously. But yeah, 4th, 5th pick for Witherbloom Apprentice. Up next is Witherbloom Command. Witherbloom Command is black-green for a sorcery at rare. Why are there more on Arena? Choose 2. Target player mills 3 cards. Then you return a land card from your graveyard to your hand. Destroy target non-creature, non-land permanent with value mana 2 or less. Target creature gets -3/-1 until end of turn. Okay. Target opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Okay. This is only 2 mana. Maybe that is its saving grace, that it's only 2 mana. But I don't like much of what's going on here. What non-creature, non-land permanent with mana value 2 or less are you destroying with this? There's not much. -3/-1 does not kill very much, but maybe it will. Maybe after combat. Target opponent losing 2 life, gaining 2 life. That's never a card I'd play. I think this is pretty low pick. This might actually be worse than the Prismari one. I'll put this 6th through 8th pick. This is a pretty meh command. Up next is Witherbloom Pledgemage. Witherbloom Pledgemage is 3 Golgari for a creature Treefolk Warlock at common. It's a 5/5 with Magecraft. You gain a life. Could probably pick this up on the wheel easily. Easily wheel this card. It's a vanilla 5/5 more or less, and maybe you get an extra life off of some of your spells. But you should be able to wheel this without much problem. Wheel for Witherbloom Pledgemage. Our final monocolored card. Finally, I get to take a break 2.5 hours in. Is Zimone Quandrix Prodigy. Zimone Quandrix Prodigy is green, blue for a legendary creature human wizard. At uncommon, it's a 1/2. Pay 1 tap. You may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. That's not as good as you think it is. If you have a bunch of lands in your hand sucks. But yes, it's not a bad thing. It's an upside, but it's not that much of an upside. Pay 4, tap, draw a card. If you control 8 or more lands, draw 2 cards instead. Hey! 2.5 hours in, we found Quandrix's supposed ability, supposed archetype. Yeah, it's a very good ability. It's a very good ability. This is a mana sink that I am very happy to have my hands on. This card looks amazing. I'm really happy to play this card. I will first pick this card. Maybe I'll be wrong to do so, but I'll first pick this card. I think it's very good. Anyways, YouTube, that's going to wrap it up for the monocolored. Next video will be white, and then blue, and then black, and then red, and then green, and then artifact lands and Mystic Archives. I'm never going to bed tonight. See you next time, YouTube.